Got it. All right. And we are live. Meeting is now being streamed live on YouTube. What's up? Welcome to the Social Jello with Angelo podcast, also mistakenly referred to as the Kajukenbo podcast. No, it's not. Unofficially, it might be. Either way, so, I'm here with our guest. So I'm here. I'm here with our guest today, Joseph Bautista Jr. Did I say that right?
You are allowed to say junior, yes.
Okay. All right. I just
Yeah,
put out
yeah,
there.
and like that's that gray area, right? It's nothing against my family lineage or anything, but it's also it's to depict who I am. I usually just go by my first and last name, but out of recognition to my father, Grandmaster Joseph Bautista Senior, yes, I'm Joseph Bautista Jr.
Okay. Got that out of the way. So, we're just kind of waiting for some more people to jump in. And as you saw in the title, you saw what the title is. So there's no getting mad about anything. Okay. Oh, you can. You get mad. If you want to get mad, fine. I'm not going to stop you. All right. Now, if you have any comments, we this is a live. So if you're watching right now, thank you for watching. Feel free to jump in and say what you're thinking. Okay. No problems here. If you want to comment on the thing, I'm keeping an eye on the comments while also hosting the live. So keep that in mind. If I seem a little distracted, I'm multitasking behind the scenes. So today's topic is what I just mentioned earlier. Are you practicing a mixed martial art or are you practicing multiple martial arts? I'm just going to open the floor right now. Joseph, what are your thoughts on this? It was your idea. It was Joseph. Am I saying some name that only like your grandma? Joseph, or do people call you Joe? Or is it like what's going on, brother? Like,
There's that ongoing joke from the movie The Birdcage, right? That whole scene where Nathan Lane is trying to like cover up their last name. And the line that I feel depicts me the best is I never know where I'm at until I hear my name called a certain way.
what do you want me to call you, man? What would you prefer?
I'm okay with whatever. I have many friends that many Ohana that have seen me grow up. I mean, I've been a dojo baby since inception to birth, and I've been Joey, Joe, Joseph, Jay, um, Junior, Batista, number three, number two. I've had a whole arrangement of descriptions, and then I have a whole slew of other nicknames that just accrued over the years. At the end of the day, it's whatever you feel comfortable calling me. Just remember that if you do something inappropriate, I have no problem you and I getting in the ring for a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. I don't mind.
I don't
So
think you did. That's a problem. Like, okay.
I don't mind. So, all right. So, So here's what I'm gonna do then. Let's go ahead and open up. What did you introduce this topic? I guess go ahead and explain real quick what you see as the difference between a mixed martial art and practicing multiple martial arts. We'll open up the floor with you explaining that real quick.
It's it's kind of it falls in line of our original connection, right? And Kajukenbo, it is a mixed martial art. It's multiple martial arts combined into one curriculum. That's what makes a mix, right? Multiple is where there's a separation. We see a lot of clubs that are MMA, and they'll even say mixed martial art, which is not a negative connotation towards them, but call a spade, right? A multiple martial arts, if you are practicing the crafts such as jujitsu, Muay Thai, and then you're practicing, boxing later, and within a single day you're doing 3 hours. That's not mixed. That's separated. They're separated by a lesson plan, individual, and there's an individual lesson plan based upon each singular craft. The only time it's mixed is when they're applied within the single educational time frame or training platform that puts them in together. Usually, there's some really good clubs that actually practice MMA as a mixed martial art within their within their curriculum. You see them as primarily Kajukenbo schools, but then also there's a few other styles like Taijitsu. There's even some to a degree, like Krav Maga is a mixed martial art, right? They bring in multiple components like firearms, the grappling, the hand to hand. A mixed martial art should be a combination of multiple martial arts within one curriculum based upon the development of the individual to be a well-rounded athlete without compromising the most precious commodity on this planet, time. So when you do multiple martial arts, you'll have 2, 3 hours within a day or across 2 days of the singular art being practiced. And it's really just an ideology of creating a clear delineation between what the individual is practicing, whether they are practicing a mixed martial art or multiple martial arts. Now, that doesn't mean that they are not a mixed martial artist, right? So if a person is practicing multiple martial arts, they can be a mixed martial artist because of all of the different trades. But are you practicing mixed martial arts or are you practicing multiple martial arts? That's really a good separation of an individual in their concept of development, right? For instance, my sister is by trade a classically trained pastry chef, right? But she's still a chef. That doesn't necessarily mean that she is skilled in meats or skilled in savory sauces, or like that really says that she is a pastry chef. That is a multiple amount of crafts under the category of chef, right? And then you got those whole cooks and chefs. There are a whole clear delineation between each other. A chef is classically trained and a cook is not. That's where we kind of have that concept within martial arts is, are you a mixed martial artist or you are a martial artist who practices multiple arts?
Okay. So I'm going to stop you for a sec. I have some comments coming in.
Oh, here we go.
So Kane Corso, Muay Thai or boxing better for self-defense? Kane, thank you for jumping on and asking that question. Honestly, I want to say for self-defense, anything that includes more is better. Okay, so as long as you're not, the one thing I don't like about saying that boxing is the best for self-defense is that you're going to be missing kicks. I don't like to say Muay Thai is the best for self-defense because then you're going to be missing grappling. But if we're going to compare the two, I want to lean towards Muay Thai because it's going to give you more tools to work with. That's it. Just if you're asking me that as a Kajukenbo black belt, it's going to give you more tools to work with. Now, that does not discredit boxing at all. Okay. If you ask me a more controversial question, do I think karate is better than boxing? I'd say boxing's better. Oh, yes, I just said it. And it's only because of the amount of time they spend actually punching each other in the face. Modern karate, I'm in Japan, okay? I love karate. I'm going to do a podcast about this later. I love karate. I do. I have a respect for it. I grew up on the Karate Kid and all that stuff and Cobra Kai. I like it. But there is a difference between American karate and original Japanese karate. And if you look at the Olympics, if you saw the last Olympics, people were complaining. Karate guys are complaining about karate, about the lack of contact and them pulling back their punches before they hit to the face. It's taken sport karate in a different direction. Now, I'm not going to go there. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So I'm just going to go back to the original question. Is boxing better than Muay Thai for self-defense? So I guess it really depends. And then one more aspect. I hate to answer a question with a question, but what do you personally like to do? I always ask this to my students when they come into my school. I want to learn self-defense. Okay, when you see someone just walked up to your girlfriend, slapped her in the ass, and started a fight with you, what do you want to do to this person? I want to grab them and tear their throat out. So you want to grab them? Let's start with grappling. I want to punch him in the face. Okay, let's start with boxing. I'll always start with whatever you initially want to gravitate towards, because if you don't know anything about fighting, there's something already in you that is going in a direction, so always follow that. More comments. At home tactical defense. We train mixed and multiple. Ooh, that's different.
There
He
you
said,
go.
but I
Hey,
choose
at the end
A
of the
and
day,
B.
it's about creating a clear delineation. It's not pointing the finger at people, but a clear delineation allows you to take a step back and really look at the craft at 6,000 feet. And if you can see it at 6,000 feet, then you can create the development for you personally,
Okay.
or even your students
And then
at a
let me,
higher efficiency.
as before you continue, I'm gonna finish this comment real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Um, we can mixed in multiple martial arts, Kajukenbo, Tanpai, Tai Chi, Judo, and MMA. And then he adds, I'm a martial artist. No other delineation needed. So it's funny that you're like, clear delineation. I don't need another delineation here. But this is actually at home tactical defense. Oh man, I'm gonna mess up your name, brother. Toby? I think it's Toby Erickson. Here we go. And if not, man, just type your name real quick. I'll butcher it when I read it again. And he's got a really cool program where he's got what he just mentioned. He's got he's got his Kajukenbo program where he mixes it all up, and then he has the separate programs where he just does that one thing. Like he's got a judo guy who comes in, and I saw him slamming a judo guy. The guy Kane Corso asks, judo or jujitsu? Dude, all right, here we go. I like the question. The Muay Thai or boxing, judo or jiu-jitsu, judo or jiu-jitsu. Here, brother, here's the problem. We have to make a quick distinction between modern judo and modern judo, traditional judo, and jiu-jitsu real quick. I don't want to go into a long history. Stephen Kesting has a great podcast with this guy named what is it? BJJ historian. I think it's Rob something. BBJ historian. Come on. His
While you
name
guys are watching this, yeah,
is
you get to see Angelo just kind of
it's just
research
ADHD
on.
out. That's what you get to see me do. Just really lean in
Did you
to
see that
that.
butterfly go by?
Historian Stefan.
I mean, like Angelo, like Jello was saying, you got to have somewhat of the history if you're gonna ask between judo and jujitsu, and essentially you're almost speaking the same thing. Where if within the sport of the two, judo is more of standing and grinding away from standing to into the throws. You can still do some grappling in judo, but the focal point is primarily the throws. In jujitsu, throws are the secondary in comparison to the long bouts of the hand-to-hand grappling that usually you'll do onto the ground. But if we go deeper into the history, both judo and jujitsu were kind of the last resort of the samurais after the arrows, the spears, and the swords were no longer sufficing the fight.
All right, I got it. So Robert Dreisel. Okay, I really, really, super, really encourage you to look up Robert Drysdale here, and we're gonna go on a little internet tour. Follow me. Here we go. So here's a little internet tour. Robert Drysdale's got a great Sturdiest Life podcast with Stephen Kesting, also a Kajukenbo black belt and a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Has a great podcast where he goes into the history of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Robert Drysdale. And I mean, you went way back into like the Meiji period of history of we went
Hey, if you don't know
but
if you don't know the roots of the tree, how high can it grow?
so, but even then, it gets even more complicated when you're talking about. So again, so sorry, I'm totally not answering your question. My answer, because we gotta define the question before I just throw it out there. And now I'm wondering if he already commented because I'm not looking at the comments right now. So now if he already clarified it, I'm just beating a dead horse here. So you nailed it. All right, thanks at home. I nailed it. BJJ, yeah, he had it. BJJ.
Well, actually,
Okay,
this kind of falls in line. This falls in line to that
that's
little
okay.
post you made a
That's
while
okay.
ago, right?
Yeah.
When the person is saying judo or jujitsu,
Yeah.
how are you
Yeah.
spelling jujitsu?
So he just clarified it. He said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right, thank you. I really appreciate you making that distinction because I need to have it. All right, Kane. So if we're saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo, I want to lean towards Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's only because if you go to a modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place now, for the most part, a lot of modern Brazilian jiu-jitsu is bringing in mixed martial arts, while judo is still really sticking because it's an Olympic sport. All right, they're really sticking to what they need to get you into the Olympics, which is a total awesome thing. Look, I'm not criticizing it at all. There's still some great self-defense aspects there. Um, but they are really trying to get you ready for an Olympic event, which is a lot more prestigious than winning a street fight. Like, I'll tell you there's a lot more prestige in winning the Olympics than there is even more controversial state. I'm just gonna throw all the controversial statements out today. I think there's more prestige in winning a gold in the Olympics than winning a gold in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, you can win the worlds, and everyone who does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu will love you, and they'll know who you are. Any martial artist who follows the worlds will accept you and see you're an awesome. You've created an awesome achievement. But the second you leave Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you walk out into the regular world, you can literally win a world's championship and then go to your work, because most of you work. That's the other thing. It's like there's not a lot of professional tracks for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then even if you are a professional player, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player, outside of your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, no one really knows who you are. No offense. But if you win a judo gold, if you win a gold in the Olympics, you're going to have some recognition. In Japan, especially, like they follow, like Japanese follow judo like it was the way Latinos follow football. Like they love that. That's their sport. So you would literally you'd come over here and they'd have a parade for you. Like you would be famous and you'd have a
The
lot of opportunities.
the French as well. It's judo's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
high notoriety in France. So, and then the counterpart to Latinos and football, also you have England in football.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. So at home tactical defense, I heard USJA is considering a legs in division. Yeah, I heard that too. I don't know much about it, but I heard about that. Judo and Romo and Greco are fun to watch. Jiu-Jitsu freestyle don't care about spectators. Yeah, they don't. They really don't. That's a very good comment. Judo and Rim and Greco are fun to watch, but Jiu-Jitsu and freestyle wrestling don't care about spectators. Right? That's a really good distinction there. I think a lot of martial artists fall under that. Right? Like I cross train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. And something I notice all the time is I'm kind of a black sheep when I'm there training, because I'll do the techniques, I'll train, but I'll always have one of the guys walk up to me at the end of class. Hey, I kind of want to do some MMA. So like after class, can we put on some gloves and just kind of go at it? I'm like, yeah, sure. And they know I'm the only guy who will say yes to that. Because if you most Brazilian jiu-jitsu players, they want to get better at Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So if you ask them to throw on some gloves and throw down, depending on who you ask, there's a high chance they might say no. No, no, I kind of have a
That's
tournament
a
coming
great
up.
point towards this subject right now. You literally just declared that you are a mixed martial artist because, yeah, when they come in, they say, hey, let's throw down some gloves. You're like, yeah, let's do this. You can switch between the two. In multiple martial arts, you'll have a primary focus at the moment or for a length of time, a term. That is where, again, we're at that clear delineation. And it doesn't matter what school you are, you really have to have the clear delineation for the individual that's in front of you. You might be teaching Kajukenbo, but this guy is just not a mixed martial artist. He prefers stand up. He prefers Eskrima. He prefers BJJ. He prefers judo. At the end of the day, it's about the individual that is your student, not what you are trying to preach. Because if you don't have a student, you don't have a school. You may have a student to some degree. But if you don't have students, or let's make it plural, if you don't have students, you don't have a school, and that is totally fine. I know a lot of great martial artists who are the best in development, and they just don't have schools because their ideology behind teaching is super extreme traditional, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. To each his own. But if you don't have a clear delineation, how can you help the individual that's in front of you when there is so much information about the word MMA in either mixed martial art or multiple martial arts, and then you end up confusing the student. You confuse them too much. It depreciates the amount of opportunities that they can learn because now they're trying to put too many things in one category that don't fit. They're trying to put a round block in a square hole. Like that question that was asked, boxing or kickboxing. I mean, I'm going to argue you on that one. And at the end of the day, I will always say it depends on the individual, not the style.
And here's the other thing, like I'm gonna avoid, like I said earlier, I'm gonna avoid the what's the difference between MMA and Kajukenbo. If you want to see that, look on my channel and type in under my content. I can't do the links now because these are live. This is live, so I can't do your lazy link. You lazy motherfuckers. I have a little link for you so you can click on it. You assholes probably don't even click on it either. But either way, I do that for you. I do that for you. So you're gonna have to do a little more work those fingers, and you're gonna have to type in what is the difference between Kajukenbo and MMA. Either Google it or put it under my search content, and you'll see a conversation with me and UFC coach John Hackelman and also Kajukenbo black belt break that down for you. But it's going, and I said I was going to avoid going too deep there, but you're touching on another level. So there's two levels to your question. There's the guy walking into a place wondering, no experience whatsoever, telling themselves, I want to do MMA. And they're walking in and they want to do MMA. When they say that, they mean the sport. That's what they normally think of. They've been watching MMA, they've been flipping through the channels, and they want to practice the sport of MMA. So for those guys walking in, they need a clear distinction right off the bat. And it may not, more controversial statements, Kajukenbo might not be what they're looking for, because they're looking for the sport of MMA. They want something that's going to prepare them for that sport. And breaking things into boxes for that sport, for someone who doesn't know anything, that might be easier for them because they have a very clear set goal, and it's a very short amount of time to accomplish that goal.
And you have to separate them for
yeah.
that. You have to separate them. And then we go, obviously our association here is Kajukenbo at the end of the day. And so I will kind of speak onto that. We do want to have that clear delineation. A mixed martial art and multiple martial arts. Multiple martial arts will be the sport. A mixed martial art will go beyond the sport.
And then why am I saying all this? And I didn't say this with John, but I'll say this now. Because when you look at the sport of MMA, it's kind of a combination of all those rule sets. So like the judges, even though right now Rogan's been complaining a lot about this. He's been complaining that he doesn't understand why they have the boxing regulation judges judging MMA fights, because they've been there for a while now. We'll give them that. They've been doing this long enough now that they understand, they more or less kind of understand more what they're looking for in MMA. So it's not like the early days of the UFC, but still at the end of the day, they spend most of their time doing judgment for the Nevada State Commission for boxing. That's mostly what they're looking at. So they're looking for things like ring control, things that you look for in boxing that you might not necessarily be looking for in, let's say, grappling. But at the end of the day, the referees and everyone else watching that's been coming up, looking at the rule sets, are looking at these things. And that's just the UFC. I'll break that down into another level. Out here, again, bring it back to Japan. Out here in Japan, they are very well versed in the rules of grappling and the rules of boxing and the rules of kickboxing. So your judges, especially in the amateur divisions, are MMA fighters, or they're the retired MMA fighters, and they know, and they're retired, or they're currently in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or whatever, they've already done MMA and they like their sport. So they know the different rule sets. So does the referees. A lot of the referees will referee an MMA match, a kickboxing match, and then you'll see them later at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament refereeing. And so they know the different rule sets. So when you're looking at the MMA fight, they're looking at all of those rule sets. They're looking at things like guard passing. They're looking at things like ring control. They're looking at things like takedowns, takedown control, upper control. Like they're looking at these things that come in from different aspects of the sport, and they're looking at who's more dominant in all those categories. So it's a sport, right? And that's the whole thing. And I'm not saying it's better or worse for self-defense. That's where Hackelman went, and you can check that out. But we're saying, well, what's going on here? That's what's going on. So if you're someone who practices, let's say you're more of a traditional Kajukenbo martial artist who never did any MMA, nothing wrong with that. Again, I'm not criticizing you. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you're a bad person or whatever. What's going to happen is your perspective is going to be a little different than someone who actually competed in that sport of MMA. So when you have that student come in who says, I want to do MMA, it's going to be a little bit of a little different set of tools you're going to need to help that student. Now, why I said there was two levels, that's the person walking in. The other level is the person running a program. That's the second level. And a lot of you people watching are running programs, right? And that's the other level of this is if you're running your own school and you have something on your wall, you're advertising something. If you put MMA anywhere on your school, you have to remember that maybe your definition, back to our very earlier, are you practicing a mixed martial art or are you practicing multiple martial arts? That definition, most people are going to just see MMA and they're thinking sport MMA, and you have to be prepared for these people. These people don't care about belt ranks. They don't care about forms. They just don't. You can try to get them to care, but they don't. Walking in, they don't. And they have that clear goal of wanting to play that sport. So you have to think about that. And I had to think about that when I put my program together. I had to think about that. And I had to make a distinction between the three. So now my program has my school has now 4 different programs. I have my Kajukenbo program where I teach my Kajukenbo, what was taught to me, adapted also with modern applications. And it's mostly kids. There's only like 2 adults that actually want to do it. And then I have my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program that focuses on the sport of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then I have my MMA program, which is very, very loose. I let the guys come in. They tell me, because another thing about MMA guys is you never know what they're going to end up doing. Like they'll say, I want to do MMA. All right, cool. So I have these guys. I have a sumo wrestler and a judo black belt who came in recently. And they said, we're here because we want to do MMA. All right, right on. We have a fight coming up. Okay, well, what's your fight? Who do you have coming up? Well, we're doing a battle royale. Have you heard of that? And I'm like, nope. What are the rules? What exactly are you doing? We're
They're
doing what?
fighting for the main world of Earth. It's called Europe.
I thought
Sorry, I
it
couldn't help it.
was
I couldn't help
well,
it.
well, to be honest, my first thing that came into my mind was the Hunger Games. Like, so you're all gonna be put in a circle. They're gonna throw a bunch of weapons in the center room. You got 2 minutes. Whoever grabs what. But anyway, all jokes aside, first round is 2 minutes of boxing. Second round is 2 minutes of tire boxing, where they stick their foot in a tire and beat the crap out of each other, which I wouldn't recommend for anyone. And then the third round is an MMA round with MMA gloves, and it's MMA round. So there's 3 different categories, right? So I'm looking at this, and this is the kind of stuff that MMA guys will do to you. They'll say they want to do MMA. Okay, well, all right, let's get you before you get you a fight. I already have a fight. Most of the guys that come into my school already have a fight. So like, it's not like they come up to me fresh and they've never done anything. I want to do MMA. I only have one guy that did that, and that's a different story. Most of the guys that come in here, usually sometimes they even belong to another gym. They're just cross training with me too, which is fine. I don't mind, but I need to get out of the way what the rule sets is. I'm going to take one comment and then hand the floor over again to you, Joseph. What is the proper pronunciation of John Hoylo's name? Hoylo. Hey, I just said it. I know. I always say Hojlo, and that got me in trouble for a long time. Hoylo. Does he train in Union City at Professor Jeff's school? If you're talking about John Hoylo, Kane, no. If you're talking about John Hoylo actually runs his own program out here called Kajukenbo Okayama out here in Japan. It's about 2 hours from where I live. And he originally trained in the Bay Area under GM Ron Esteller. So that's
My godfather.
it's all connected to here. All right, I'm gonna
I
hand over.
used to
I'll handle
train
this for you.
under Professor Jeff in Union City before I moved out to Arizona.
All right, so we cleared all that up. So I am trying to keep these lives within 30 minutes. So we are going to kind of wrap up pretty soon here. But Joseph, any more comments on what I just mentioned?
I really kind of want to rewind from what you said, that we do have a good amount of individuals who own their own schools, or they're operating under creating the martial artists underneath them. And I want to say that, argument aside, If you do disagree with me, that's totally fine. Maybe we can have a beer and talk about it. But without a clear delineation, how can you start someone at one place and take them to where they want to go and replicate that without the exact mimicry of each person, but still giving them their own individual path? You still need that template of delineation. If you don't, you're going to try to lump everybody up into the same category all the time. I've seen it happen multiple times. I'm pretty sure you did too, Angela. It's easy to get caught in that rut of this is how we do it. This is how it's going to be. This is how it should be. And I won't accept anything else. Now, there's many individuals I have lived with and have been a part of my life. They were very strong in that position. And I hate to say what that brings them, which is they're broke. They have no leg to stand on. They have nobody that believes in them. And they feel like they are alone on the only mountain in the planet or on an island. And then they want to argue and fight with everybody. We got to take our ego out of the equation. And it is about the students. It is about the craft. It is about the evolution of us as a community in order to separate, understand, then bring it back into the fold. I mean, when you make a cake, you do not mix the wet and the dry ingredients first. You separate them distinctly before you can put them back together. And then you put it in the oven and you got a cake.
And I mean, this is so one of the reasons I got into martial arts was because well, I lived in a violent neighborhood and I went over how to punch with my dad. I got jumped. After I got jumped, I got saved by a taekwondo guy. Later I found out he was a taekwondo guy. Um, five guys jumped me. Five, I say not kids. One of them was a grown ass man. And this taekwondo guy jumped in and we fought them off and I survived because the week before that same group of mixed kids and adults, some 18-year-old was in the mix, put another kid in the hospital. So after that, even though I was not a very violent person, I thought I can get by with my pacifist idealist beliefs at the age of 12. I realized really quickly that my dad was right and every once in a while I got to punch someone in the face. And so he taught me how to some punching. I had some not formal boxing, but he taught me how to throw a punch, so I knew how to throw a punch. And then after that, I thought I handled it, and I handled a lot of my disputes through punching. But within a year, my cousin, who was a huge fan of Bruce Lee, asked me to spar with him, and I still wasn't into kicking and stuff. And he kicked me in. He did a side kick and knocked the wind out of me, and that's when I was like, okay, who's this? I thought the Bruce Lee guy was just some actor, right? And who screamed a lot on TV. I thought he was kind of silly. But after he did that, I was like, okay, let me look more into this guy. And I read books and I got really into Bruce Lee. In the opening line in his book, and it's funny, I started watching a bunch of Bruce Lee movies. I became one of those really Bruce Lee nuts. And like many of you, probably watching the show, you became a Bruce Lee nut.
We can all quote them, man. We can all quote them. There's a huge reservoir. Every one of us got one of our favorites.
So before, and this was before I started any formal martial arts training. I'm still just reading books and sparring. This is the fight club. I started a little fight club between me, the guy who saved me from getting jumped, and my cousin who read a lot of Bruce Lee books. And then we invited anyone, and people with black belts in arts would come in. We had a guy who had a black belt in Okinawan karate come in, and he was an adult, and he'd train, we'd spar, and that's how I kind of started. But I was still not formally training in anything, and I was reading those books that were kind of encouraging me to stay away from dojos and quoons. In my head, that's what I thought. Because if you look at Bruce Lee, a lot of stuff he was just talking a lot of shit about traditional martial arts. If you read his stuff, but I thought it was interesting that after talking a lot, and I finally picked up his book, the Tao. I've heard it from Tao to Tao, Tao to Tao. I've heard all three, and Gung Fu, Kung Fu. I've heard it all. So, when you read his book, the Tao or Tao of Kajukenbo, he opens up talking a lot of shit about the traditional martial arts world, but finishes that chapter with, but if you want to join a dojo or a kwoon and start in a style like karate or judo, feel free. That might be the path for you. So like I think it's interesting that, going back to your saying about separating and mixing the cake example. Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. You might find yourself, it might be easier for you as a beginner, if you're going back to the beginner student, it might be easier for you to have those separate boxes right off the bat, to help you be able to have those different tools and categories. And you don't want to get boxed in either. And that this brings me into my, so going back to that question and my friend, do you want to grab him or do you want to punch him? And one of my friends said, I want to grab him. And I said, okay, you live a little far from me for me to teach you because he lived in Kobe, which is like an hour or two away from my house. You live a little far from my school for me to teach you. So off of your answer, because he was asking me the same question as Kane did earlier, kickboxing or boxing, right? He was asking me those kind of questions, kickboxing or boxing or jiu-jitsu or judo. And he's older. He's older. He's like in his mid 30s already, up closer to 40s. And I said, you know what? I recommend Gracie Baja Jiu-Jitsu. And more disclaimers. I love Gracie Baja Jiu-Jitsu. It is the most organized jiu-jitsu organization because it's tied directly to Carlos Gracie Jr., who is founded the IBJJF, which is the modern Kodokan of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We talk about the Kodokan in judo. Nowadays, we have IBJJF, which is like the modern Kodokan, like the biggest organization for Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So it's very official, but it's kind of a McDojo. Not like McDojo as in they're teaching you fake stuff. It's more like a very highly commercialized school, like a McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's, you're guaranteed to have a Big Mac. You're going to find a Big Mac. If you go to a McDonald's anywhere in the world, most likely, unless you go to India, you're going to find a Big Mac and it's going to more or less taste the same. And that's what I mean by McDojo in this situation, right? So I knew for a fact if I recommended this particular place, I had another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place, but they're a lot rougher. They're like doing ankle locks at white belt because you're getting guys ready for MMA. So it's a little bit rougher. And this guy's in his mid 30s. So I purposely recommended Gracie Baja because I'm like, hey, you'll be safe. You won't get injured. They're going to give you the Big Mac. You know, if you want a Big Mac, you're going to get the Big Mac. It might not be a gourmet burger, but you don't need a gourmet burger right now. You said you wanted a Big Mac. So like, that's something you
But
want
it's
to
going to
keep
be
in
the
mind.
same thing no matter where you go.
Yeah.
It's an expectation that's going to be met based upon a description that is both perceived and then received.
And then some random comment. France, okay, this is my friend. The Burnt Early's Forever, the best band ever. It's a band I was in when I was a teenager. I love the Cobra Kai movies coming in from France. Thank you, France. It's my old guitar player. He had to come in and throw a shot out to the old band. Um, so yeah, and I think that's an important distinction to make. Um, and if you are running a program, that might be a lot for you to do. I really like what Toby does it. He was just talking about his judo program. He has a judo guy come in, right? Right. And if I'm wrong, go ahead and correct me now, brother, if I'm wrong on that one. But one thing you can do, I'm only one guy, right? So I know Jeff McAlowy has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor come in, and boxing instructors come in, and kickboxing instructors come in. He's not going to be a one-man army.
And Aikido.
And I don't know if
Aikido.
you know all the
And
programs better
I'm
than I would.
at our school here in Arizona, it's pretty much similar with our own distinctions. And that's actually what my instructor, Professor Jeff, really encouraged. He said, I want you to have all of my knowledge, the way, in the same level that it's an expectation of you, but then I want you to also be yourself. So in our school, we have an Eskrima class, just like Professor Jeff, but we have judo at our school. And it's a straight program, judo. We have USA boxing. We have a Muay Thai class. And then our regular kids class, and then our ladies class is actually a ladies only self defense where I'm basically using all of our Kajukenbo, our mixed martial art, without the traditional components like the katas and the traditional categories of self-defense, but taking the categories and simplifying it to where these individuals who don't want to bang, they don't want to get hit, we kind of develop that as much as we can, but to a degree, that is kind of the safest point, and the reason why a lot of people in the beginning stages of BJJ, why we see a large flux of them, is you don't see the whole pound away and they get choked out with marks, bruises, cuts, and damaged eyes and things like that, scratches on the face. That doesn't really happen until much later in rank because the exploration becomes very there's a lot of force or tactical manipulation behind it. Like leg locks, like you just said, the rough, the guys are starting with leg locks right out the gate. From my knowledge, it's not my trade of practice, but from my knowledge, I believe you're not allowed leg locks until about blue/purple, correct?
Yeah, normally it's recently
Normally, right?
normally. So the
I know that's
IBJ
not allowed in
it,
competition.
it has to do with what, remember I told earlier, talked about the Kodokan and IBJJF being the Kodokan now. Recently they opened up straight ankle leg
Knee bars,
locks. Leg
and
locks.
straight knee bars too, right?
No knee bars.
Okay.
But they recently opened up straight ankle leg locks in some of the white belt divisions in BJJ. And then IBJJF says no, we're gonna make the standard. I believe it is either blue belt or purple belt. Last I checked, it was
Yeah, I
purple.
thought it was purple. Yeah.
They might have brought it down to blue, and it just depends because some of the
Let
you
us
have to
know,
be
guys.
careful.
Correct us if it's
Yeah,
different. But
yeah.
from my knowledge, and it sounds like we're pretty much on the same page. Purple is where the leg locks are allowed at IBJJF.
All right, so I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I have someone asking, so who is the guest? Oh, who is the guest? The guest is Joseph Bautista Jr. He's a Kajukenbo black belt coming out of Arizona, and you're coming out of Dragon's Den MMA, right? Originally, and then it
My
goes,
Yep,
and then if you
the
want to know
lineage is
more,
a little bit interesting. Yeah,
yeah, and if you
my
want, oh,
my
go,
my
yeah.
primary instructor for my rank in my personal development in mixed martial arts as well as multiple martial arts is Professor Jeff Muckalaloy. Above him is actually my father, Grandmaster Joseph Bautista Sr. And then above Grandmaster Joseph is my grandfather, Emil Bautista. So I'm a third generation by technicality, even though it's not directly straight from my father.
And to not deviate from the topic, you can learn more by Googling Joseph Bautista Jr. Social Jello with Angelo podcast. And we talk all about Joseph for like an hour. So you can check it out there.
You guys are more than welcome.
See, that's why I do that. You're asking, like, well, everyone always asks me that when they're going to be on the show. Well, what's the first show about? It's all about you. Why? This is why. So, and later, when we're talking about something else, we don't gotta keep talking about you.
And if you guys want to let them, I've grown up in this martial art. So my lenses have always been absorbing the content of martial arts in so many different aspects. If that helps out.
No, I think actually this person might actually know you. He says, your glasses threw me off."
Hold on.
There you go. Now you're right. And you're like Superman, brother. Who are you again?
Right.
Did you went from Joseph to Joe just like that? So we are wrapping up this conversation pretty soon here. Again, the original conversation was, are you practicing a mixed martial art or multiple martial arts? And again, I want to say towards the end of this conversation, it wasn't even to compare the two as one being superior to the other. Very much, I always say this, that Social Jello with Angelo podcast is a mix of martial arts and psychology. And people always think that when I say psychology, that I'm going to sit here like Freudian style and not say anything and talk about how your mother raised you. But that's not at all what I mean. Part of something that we talk about psychology is definitions. What are what we call operational definitions? Because that's really important. If I'm calling something a tomato, is it a tomato? Is it a fruit or a vegetable? I need to know these things before I move forward and start being able to say what they're used for. So that's what we pretty much did today. So if you just came in now, you want to know, just rewind to the beginning. And we really tried our best to break down those two definitions and hopefully give you a lot more information that I planned, because the guests started asking us questions right off the bat, and I really appreciate that. And if any of you have any more questions, now's the time. Let's see here. Some more Cobra Kai commercialized in the movies, hence the Big Mac. That's true, Franz. I thought he was Batman. Oh, when you took off your glasses, he thought you were Batman. Um, and
I
see,
could be.
you never. There's still a chance.
I wouldn't mind the royalties of that.
Saw that one. Very nice. That's what he said. He was a wushu practitioner. Um, so oh yeah, cool. So you saw that podcast. Nice. I appreciate you checking that out. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, we really do appreciate you checking out the show. Joseph, any last things you want to shoot out there? Any events or
I
something?
do, and this is actually kind of part of your story as you were growing up as a pacifist. Um, I think we, as martial artists, we hear that phrase pacifist, and it almost sounds as a contention to what we do. I'd like to challenge you. We are here about psychology, but I'd like to challenge you guys. Instead of thinking that the individual in front of you that declares themselves as a pacifist, let them know that you are past the fist.
I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a
Than a
gardener
gardener
in
in a
a
war.
war. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I think that's the one I like really well. So again, Social Jello with Angelo podcast. I'm at 978 subscribers. I don't think I'm gonna hit that 1K mark by the end of this month. I don't think I'll hit it. But if I did, that would be wonderful because then I'd finally hit all the qualifications to be officially a YouTube affiliate. But again, I'm not really trying to be a YouTuber. It'd just be nice to have, I don't know, I think it'd give me like $5, $10, and that's enough for a Big Mac, which I would be interested in having.
Or a Cobra Kai gi.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if my show will make enough money for a Cobra Kai gi. I need to.
You'd have to get the ones for the birthday parties.
I'd have to. I can maybe if I work hard enough, I can get the Halloween costume version.
Or at least the bandana.
Yeah, at least a bandana. I can probably get the bandana. That's like $10. That'll work. But I'd rather have a Big Mac. All right, y'all. Again, subscribe and share with your friends. This is a live. I'm not making any guarantees here because if I tell you I'm going to do a live every week, I will say that I'll do a cross promotional thing right now. I do have another podcast that I host, another live YouTube show that's going to turn into a podcast with John Hackleman. That's every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's hard for me. Okay, I'm in Japan, so I'm constantly trying to change the times and figure out what. So yeah, every Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. from 4:30 to 5:30 is the new time. Join me with John Hackleman. Same style. You can ask questions to a UFC coach and a Kajukenbo black belt, and really a legend in a lot of the stuff he does. So you can ask him directly any questions you have. He'll answer them right there live. The Live Clean and Fight Dirty show, which is not the Social Jello with Angelo podcast, but something else that I also work on. Any events? I know you said something. There weren't really events. You made an announcement, but it wasn't really an event. Do you have an event or a seminar or something? Or
Me?
mm-hmm.
Oh,
No.
no, nothing really as far as events. I mean, there is a big event. I'm planning on going back to California in May. If anybody is interested and you'd like to hang out with me and train with me, my instructor as well, Professor Jeff Magaloloi, I'll be in Union City, California. I believe it's May 17th. I apologize, guys. I'm pulling up my calendar really quick. I
Uh,
have a, I'm a slave to my calendar.
It's okay. Pull up your calendar while you're doing that. I'm going to answer a few more questions.
The
Uh,
weekend of May 18th, I'll be in.
okay.
There'll be a seminar, so please keep yourselves posted for that. It's from what I say, from what I take on it, it's going to be a great collective seminar of Dragon's Den, and our influences in today's martial arts world. So highly take advantage of that. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, I'll be doing a lot of content that really depicts a lot of our mental aspect beyond just the fighting part. And when I say mental aspect, it's more of hands-on versus just theory.
Did you finish? I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Was that?
yeah. Sorry about that.
I was like, yeah, I can't
My
interrupt you.
brain just said,
Stop. and cut. By the guy, I wasn't like I'm not sitting here like Dave Chappelle with the wrap up button. Okay, wrap it up, B. Like that was all just. I have one more comment here. I have a few more comments. Would it be good for karate schools to join up with judo, sambo, wrestling trainers to from other schools? Yes, I would say yes. How about you, Joseph?
I do agree with that. The biggest hurdle you'll run into though is making sure that your program and those instructors of those secular programs are in alignment. And when I say alignment, it's not necessarily that they're catering to you, but you guys are still speaking the same language, even if it's a different craft, right? Uh, you got to be careful of that. It's very easy to have a different culture in certain styles like sambo or judo and then karate. Like each one has their own. Like for instance, judo has a little bit more laxed mentality, similar to jujitsu, whereas karate is highly structured. Sambo is a nice hybrid between the two because while Sambo has a lot of structure, it's a very brutal sport. And there's only one other sport that really connects the highest in the amount of grinding and demand, and that's wrestling.
And what I'm going to add to that, so if you are going to do that, brother, yeah, make sure that you don't end up with too many cooks in the kitchen. So you definitely want to talk to all the cooks, make sure you're all on the same page, and have kind of an agreement thing that you're not going to be talking shit about the other art, right? Because that's the last thing you need is having someone come in and be like, well, this art is the best. So you all have to be kind of open to the idea that you're all going to respect each other's separate arts, and then scheduling. Um, I am the only, I wish I could. I would love to hire out. And I've offered this plenty of times. And I finally got close enough. I have my professional boxer running sometimes like boxing and boxer size classes when he can. Because I just don't want to coach boxing. Like I said, I'm only one guy. So like, but we all respect each other. We all respect each other. And one of the things I say though is scheduling. So not only are you gonna have to let the instructors know that, the students too. So I always tell the students, hey, y'all, I have one set of rules for my Kajukenbo class. I have one set of rules for my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. And I have another free set of rules for the MMA guys. And the MMA guys are the hardest ones. So I have to tell the MMA guys, hey, it's fine. You can practice MMA. And whenever there is not a formal class happening, you can practice MMA. And this is the schedule for the formal classes. Outside of that, you call me, you can show up anytime. The gym is open 24, not 24 hours a day, but practically. It's open from like 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight. So it's open public access for my gym. But you got to set these parameters. Otherwise, you're going to have MMA guys showing up in the middle of your Kajukenbo class, and they're not going to want to do it, and they're going to end up interrupting. And I said the number one rule is you cannot interrupt a class. If there is a class, I don't care if it's a boxing class, a women's fitness class, whatever class, if there is a class happening, you cannot interrupt it. So if there's some people doing, I don't know, yoga or whatever the hell they want to do on the mat, and it's a class, you can't go in there and start hitting the bag. So like that's the one thing I want to say. If you are going to do that, you have to establish a very clear set of rules that everyone agrees to follow, including the students. And the biggest people you're going to have a problem with are the MMA guys. I'll tell you that from experience. Moke's YouTube is just shy of 3 million views and a lifetime payout of $262. Man, you can get a lot of Big Macs for that. You can get at least 3 Cobra Kai gis with that kind of money.
You
Or
can open a
maybe
Cobra Kai school.
And then our last comment, France, coming from France, say, brother, great conversation, guys. I learned a lot. I'm glad you did. One last comment I will say before I leave. Actually, the Cobra Kai series, one of the stunt coordinators was a Hawaiian Kempo guy coming from one of the pit schools out of Florida, who's also tied to Kajukenbo. So it's kind of interesting that some of the fight coordination came from a guy who is connected to a Kajukenbo school. Because I was thinking when I saw some of that stuff, I'm like, some of this stuff looks familiar. So yeah, that's a little interesting Easter egg. I don't know. My brain's not working anymore. I'm gonna pull a Joseph and just I think I'm done. All right, y'all. Thank you very much. Cut and cut. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Again, thanks for following the Social Jello with Angelo podcast. Again, I'm not guaranteeing lives all the time. Every Wednesday live with Hackleman, you can check it out on a different channel. And I'll try to do lives once in a while. It will be around this time, though. If you see a live, it'll be Saturdays at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's usually the time I would do a live if I do a live, and it's all good. If you can join a live, great. If you can't, no worries. It'll be on the internet, and once it's on the internet, it never comes down unless someone complains and asks me to take it down. But I don't think we see anything that controversial.
It's
Just
always controversial. It's whether somebody takes offense.
yeah, well, it's the internet. People always do. Have a great week. Catch y'all next time.